Okay, so let's begin to explain why we need to accelerate drug development for children and adolescents with cancer. I think we can all agree that we need new drugs for children with cancer. In fact, there is a current paradox in the field of oncology. On one side, we have the adult oncology, in which we have a lot of new drugs in development. However, these drugs rarely become therapies for children. And this is due in part because of the current regulatory frame in which there are a lot of pediatric developments that are either waived or delayed, allowing for poor access to pediatric patients into these innovative trials. On the other hand, we have to consider that children and adolescents with cancer represent a rare population with small sample sizes. Therefore, the commercial interest of developing new drugs for this population is small for companies. Once again, worsening the access to innovation for our patients. In fact, when we have a look at the number of new anti-cancer medicines that were approved since 2008, so over the last decade, we see a huge discrepancy between adults and children. In adults, more than 150 new anti-cancer drugs have been approved in this time period, as opposed to only 18 new drugs for children and adolescents with cancer. We're talking about new molecular entities targets. Out of these 18 new drugs for children, 15 have in fact the same indication in adults and in children. One, everolimus, has a different indication, and there are only 2 pediatric specific cancer drugs, dinutuximab and its variants, that have been specifically developed for children, as you know, more concretely for the treatment of neuroblastoma. Furthermore, it's not only that very few new drugs have been approved for a pediatric indication, it's also that those that have been approved with big delays. As you can see in this graph, we're showing the 15 medicines that have the same indication in adults and children that got the approval. And as you can see, for some of them, the time between the first market authorization in adults and the first market authorization in children has a delay of up to 17 years, as is the case of gemtuzumab, okay? So even the few drugs that got approved can have very big delays until they get approved for children. So we need to accelerate drug development for children. We need to close that gap between science on one hand and the needs for our patients, for children and adolescents with cancer. We need to improve their access to innovation. And for that, there are 2 main concepts that need to be understood. On the one hand, we have to make sure that the many drugs that are developed and approved in adults get to have a pediatric development, at least those that make sense. And for that, we have to promote mechanism of action-based development. On the other hand, we have to prioritize specific pediatric drugs. And with these 2 ways, we hope to close that gap between where the science is going and what the needs for our patients are. So with all this in mind, Accelerate's platform has established 5 core priorities. We want to achieve mechanism of action-based drug development. We need to prioritize oncology drugs to meet the needs of our patients. We need to reduce delays to initiate pediatric development of innovative drugs. We also want to promote more effective and flexible rewards for companies to develop compounds for children. And we want to include more adolescents and young adults into early adult trials so that they can benefit as well from innovation.